We all know the story of Naruto Uzumaki, the knucklehead ninja, the hero of the Fourth Great Ninja War, the Seventh Hokage who finally achieved his lifelong dream. His story is one of unwavering, almost superhuman determination. A boy who stared down gods and monsters, who turned enemies into allies, and who never, ever gave up. But what if I told you that wasn't the whole story? What if I told you that the indomitable will we so admire once flickered? That on one cold, lonely evening, the boy who would save the world was just one step away from quitting it all? This is the story of the day Naruto Uzumaki almost quit being a ninja. A quiet, forgotten moment of crisis that, had it gone differently, would have changed the fate of everyone. To truly understand this moment, we have to peel back the layers of the legend and look at the boy underneath. We often summarize Naruto's childhood with simple, tragic words: orphan, outcast, host of the nine-tailed fox. But these words fail to capture the suffocating reality of his daily existence. Imagine being a child, and the only emotion you ever see directed at you is fear, or worse, a cold, piercing hatred. Every whispered conversation that stops when you walk by, every shopkeeper who suddenly has nothing to sell you, every parent who pulls their own child away from you as if you are a walking plague. This wasn't an occasional event for Naruto. This was every single day. His dream to become Hokage wasn't born from a simple desire for power or glory. It was a desperate survival strategy. If he became the greatest, the leader of the entire village, then they would have to acknowledge him. They would have to look up to him. They would have to see him, Naruto Uzumaki, and not the monster they imagined was locked inside. His pranks, his loud declarations, his defiant shouts of "believe it," they were all armor. They were the desperate, frantic actions of a boy trying to prove his own existence in a world that wished he didn't. But armor is heavy, and even the most determined child can only carry it for so long before they start to buckle under the weight. And so we come to that day. It wasn't a day marked by a great battle or a dramatic confrontation. It was just another bad day piled on top of a mountain of other bad days. Perhaps he had failed another test at the academy, earning the familiar scorn of his classmates and the disappointment of his instructors. Perhaps he was chased out of a store while just trying to buy a carton of milk. The specific trigger doesn't matter, because it was the cumulative effect of 1,000 tiny cuts that was finally causing him to bleed out emotionally. As dusk settled over Konoha, casting long shadows that seemed to mock him, Naruto walked alone. The happy sounds of families gathering for dinner, the warm light spilling from windows, it all felt like it was from another world. A world he was not, and never would be, a part of. And for the first time, a dangerous thought, cold and sharp, pierced through his boisterous facade. Why? Why was he trying so hard? Why did he want to be a ninja for these people? Why dedicate his life to protecting a village that hated the very sight of him? The dream of being Hokage suddenly seemed absurd, a childish fantasy. They would never accept him. They would never see him. They would never love him. The whispers were right. He was a monster. An outcast. He didn't belong. In that moment, the fight went out of him. The vibrant orange of his jumpsuit seemed to fade, becoming as gray as the pavement beneath his feet. Quitting. The idea was a strange mix of terror and relief. To just stop. To stop trying, to stop caring, to stop hoping. To walk away from the academy, from the village, from the empty apartment and the dream that was causing him so much pain. He could just disappear. Maybe then the loneliness wouldn't hurt so much. He was at the precipice, not of a cliff, but of a far more dangerous abyss. Utter despair. The will of the future Seventh Hokage was broken. And then, a smell cut through the cold air. A rich, savory aroma of pork broth, noodles, and simmering vegetables. It was warm, it was inviting, and it pulled him from his dark thoughts, if only for a second. He followed the scent to a small, humble food stand with a simple cloth banner. Ichiraku Ramen. He hesitated. He knew the routine. He'd step inside and the owner would tense up. The few customers would fall silent. He'd be told they were closing, or that they were all out of food. He braced himself for the inevitable rejection, the final push that would send him over the edge. But he was so hungry, and the smell was so good. He took a small, tentative step forward. That's when it happened. The small act that changed everything. A kind-faced man with a warm, weathered smile looked up from behind the counter. He saw the hesitant, lonely boy shivering in the doorway. And he didn't see a demon. He didn't see a menace or a pariah. He saw a hungry kid. "Hey, you there, son. Don't just stand there in the cold. Come on in. A hot bowl of ramen is just what you need on a night like this." The voice was normal. It was welcoming. There was no fear in it, no hatred, just simple human warmth. Naruto was stunned into silence. The man, Teuchi, gestured to an empty stool. His daughter, Ayame, offered a bright, genuine smile. Slowly, cautiously, Naruto sat down. He expected the kindness to curdle, for the questions to start. But they never did. They just asked him what he wanted. He mumbled something about a miso ramen, fumbling for the few coins he had. Teuchi just waved a hand dismissively. "First one's on the house. A growing boy needs to eat." As the steaming, perfect bowl was placed in front of him, something inside Naruto shifted. It wasn't just the food, though it was the most delicious thing he had ever tasted. It was the atmosphere. It was Teuchi and Ayame chatting with him as he ate, asking about his day at the academy, laughing at his stories. They treated him like a person. For what felt like the first time in his entire life, he wasn't the Jinchuriki. He wasn't the outcast. He was just Naruto, a kid enjoying a bowl of ramen. That single act of unprompted, unconditional kindness was the lifeline he so desperately needed. It was a single point of light in an overwhelming darkness. It didn't magically solve all his problems. The villagers would still hate him tomorrow. The loneliness would still be waiting in his empty apartment. But Teuchi's simple gesture proved that the dark thought in his head was wrong. He wasn't a monster that no one could ever care for. Connection was possible. Kindness existed. And if it existed in one person, it could exist in others. This moment at the ramen stand became the true foundation of Naruto's ninja way. It was a lesson more profound than any jutsu he would ever learn at the academy. It taught him that the way to change the world wasn't always through overwhelming power, but through overwhelming empathy. He took that lesson and applied it for the rest of his life. When he faced Gaara, another lonely Jinchuriki twisted by hatred, he didn't just see a monster, he saw himself and offered a hand of friendship. When he confronted Nagato, a man who sought peace through pain, he looked past the destroyer and spoke to the orphan boy who had lost his way. He saw the humanity buried beneath the monster, because someone had once done the same for him. Teuchi's bowl of ramen was the first pebble that started the avalanche of change Naruto would bring to the world. From an expert perspective, this moment is a perfect illustration of the will of fire, the core philosophy of the hidden leaf. The will of fire isn't about military might. It's the belief that the bonds between people are the village's true strength, and that love is the key to protecting the next generation. On that day, Teuchi, a simple civilian ramen chef, embodied the will of fire more purely than any powerful shinobi who turned their back on a lonely child. Ichiraku Ramen became more than a restaurant. It became a sanctuary. It was the one place in Konoha where Naruto's value was never questioned. It was his anchor in the storm of his childhood. Consider the alternative. What if Teuchi had turned him away? What if he had given in to the village's fear and told the demon fox to leave? That fragile flicker of hope in Naruto's heart would have been extinguished completely. A Naruto consumed by bitterness and despair, convinced that the world was irredeemably cruel, could have easily become the very monster the village feared. The hero of Konoha could have become its greatest threat. The entire history of the ninja world hinged on that one small act of kindness. A bowl of ramen didn't just save a boy, it saved the world. So, as we look back on Naruto's epic journey from outcast to Hokage, we see the grand battles, the powerful jutsu, and the unbreakable bonds with his friends and teachers. But we must never forget the quiet beginning. The day the hero almost fell. The day a lonely boy on the verge of giving up on himself and the world was pulled back from the brink not by a legendary Sannin, or a powerful sensei, but by a kind man who offered him a seat and a hot meal. The seeds of the Seventh Hokage, the leader who would unite the world through understanding and compassion, were not planted on a battlefield. They were planted in a humble ramen stand, in a moment that proved to Naruto that no matter how dark the night gets, a single act of kindness is enough to reignite the will to fight for the dawn.